The Daily Independent, Helena, Wednesday morning, December 3rd, 1890. When Gabriel calls. These bones will get together and tell how it all happened. A ghastly find on the site of the new school building. The relatives of a pauper were satisfied, but the wrong skeleton was shipped. The workmen employed by Arthur O'Brien, the plumber, had been engaged for some days laying a 6-inch sewer pipe from the rear of the new high school building on Warren Street to connect with the large sewer on Jackson Street. About 75 feet from the building, they ran across the end of a square pine box, which projected over the trench they were digging. It was only a few feet from the surface, and as the men were digging a 16-foot trench, the box did not interfere with their operations, so it was not disturbed. Had it not been for the peculiar, sickening odor which reached the men, the box would probably have been covered up again when the work was finished, and nothing more thought about it. But it was this very odor which prompted one of the men to investigate. "I am going to see what's in the box," he exclaimed, yesterday afternoon. With these words, he gave his pick a swing over his head and struck the protruding corner of the concern. Time had rotted the boards, and the bottom, or so much of it was exposed, fell out. With it came a shower of bones and a graveyard smell. The former rained down on the head of the man who had so dexterously used his pick, while the latter almost overpowered him. It seemed that the tenant of the pine box was taking his revenge on the disturber of his rest. All work was at once suspended, and the men crowded around and gazed curiously at the remnants of what had once been a man. When the bones were collected and thrust back into the coffin, and the occupant left to take out his sleep until the trumpet of Gabriel summons him to get himself together and join the great procession that marches up to be judged according to their deeds done on this earth. The contractor for the work is building sewers, not hunting up skeletons. So unless the city wants to have the box placed in a regular cemetery, it will be allowed to remain where it is. Just when the box, for it is a box and not a coffin, came to be buried on the present site of the new high school, nobody seems to know. Some suggested that it was a graveyard there, though others failed to remember it. But it was a regular burial place, just the same, even in the days when everyone was supposed to run his own cemetery in whatever place the soil wasn't too hard. Among those buried there was Farmer Peel, a gambler who flourished in Last Chance Gulch about 25 years ago. He ran a stiff bluff on another gambler one day. It didn't work, and they buried Peel with great honors. A woman with whom he had been intimate put up a wooden headstone over the grave with these words, "Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, I will repay." It is not known whether he did. Most of those buried where the high school building is now have died violent deaths. When the cemetery was moved, it was thought that all the bodies were moved too. It appears that at least one was forgotten. Whether the gentleman in the pine box was one of those who died with his boots or not, the fact remains that the bones might be exhumed and buried elsewhere. Then an examination may disclose some clue to the mystery. The agitation of the cemetery question has brought to light some facts about the bones of the paupers who lie in the county's God's Acre. It is said that the many cases there is no way of telling whose remains are in some of the graves. Commissioner Knight, when talking about it yesterday, said that the only way one could identify a burial plot with the bones of the person in it was by the headstone. No record is kept in the county archives of the poor who are laid away at the expense of the taxpayers. This state of affairs has led to the uncertainty in several instances where relatives have discovered that a kinsman had been buried as a pauper and wished to transfer his remains. One case is told where the bones of a pauper were taken from a grave in the potter's field of the county and shipped to wealthy relatives in the East. There was no way of identifying what was left, perhaps of a prodigal son for whom no fatted calf was killed. The bones were boxed up and sent to their destination to repose in a family mausoleum. It was decided at the time of the shipment that the relatives would accept the bones without question. They must have done so, for nothing more was heard from them. This happened in the ancient times of the county, and tradition has it that the wrong skeleton was sent.